Welcome to Teaching Truth. William Wilberforce, that great parliamentarian, was at one point in his parliamentary career rumoured to be in line for a position in the cabinet, promotion. And he wrote in his journal that he began to fantasise about what might be if he got this cabinet post. And then he says that Sunday brought the cure. Blessed be Sunday, for it was on this day of the week when earthly things assumed their true size and ambition was stunted. It was on this day of the week when earthly things assumed their true size and ambition was stunted. The cure which had been brought to King Nebuchadnezzar brought him to a point where he came to the end of himself, where his sanity was restored, and where he exalted and glorified the King of heaven. He had to fall, as it were, from grace. God cut him down to size to remind him of the fact that he was not in absolute control, but that God himself was. And today, in our final reflection on our theme of snakes and ladders, we want to think about the deliverance that came to King Nebuchadnezzar. You see, King Nebuchadnezzar had climbed the ladder. He had got, as it were, to square 98 on the snakes and ladders board. And then all of a sudden, immediately, God brought him down that slippery snake back to square one. Let's read God's word together. At the end of that time, verse 34 of Daniel 4, I, Nebuchadnezzar, having been brought down to square one, raised my eyes towards heaven, and my sanity was restored. Then I praised the Most High. I honoured and glorified him who lives forever. His dominion is an eternal dominion. His kingdom endures from generation to generation. All the peoples of the earth are regarded as nothing. He does as he pleases with the powers of heaven and the peoples of the earth. No one can hold back his hand or say to him, what have you done? At the same time, my sanity was restored. My honour and splendour were returned to me for the glory of my kingdom. My advisors and nobles sought me out, and I was restored to my throne and became even greater than before. Now I, Nebuchadnezzar, praise and exalt and glorify the King of heaven, because everything he does is right and all his ways are just. And those who walk in pride, he is able to humble. Those who walk in pride, he is able to humble. That was the reality for King Nebuchadnezzar himself, and almost a testament to the experience that he had been through. The king lifted his eyes to God, suggesting both submission to a greater God than he was. Now, whether Nebuchadnezzar experienced what we might understand as spiritual conversion at this point, we cannot say for sure, but what we can say is that Nehemiah was humbled and Nehemiah looked to God. I, Nebuchadnezzar, raised my eyes towards heaven. And it's only as we raise our eyes towards heaven, our sanity, that proper perspective, is restored, as it was for William Wilberforce, when earthly things assume their true size, when we have that proper perspective before God. The king praised and exalted God. You see, 7 years before, King Nebuchadnezzar had considered himself a great man, an outstanding king, and his kingdom a great kingdom. He thought he was, quote unquote, the bee's knees, the be all and end all. But now, having been humbled, having been brought back down to square one, he had a different viewpoint. All the peoples of the earth are regarded as nothing, and those who walk in pride, he is able to humble. He praised God, but he also acknowledged the sovereignty of God. And that was the chief lesson that God wanted King Nebuchadnezzar to learn through this difficult experience. And often we have to come through, and I can speak from experience on some of this, we have to come through experiences in order that God can teach us some very salient lessons, and to teach us of the need to be humbled, of the need to put our faith in him, of the need to care about others, whatever it might be. King Nebuchadnezzar was a very powerful and a very wise king, and yet there was a king, the King of Kings, greater than he, that overruled and that brought him down to earth. So let me ask you, as I ask it of myself, are we like King Nebuchadnezzar, who at times was a very arrogant and proud king, proud of what he had achieved? Are we perhaps needing to be brought back down to square one, or perhaps we have been brought down to square one, and perhaps God is teaching us a lesson through the experience of where we are at? If God has, as it were, on the snakes and ladders board of life, taking you from square 98, and as the dice has been rolled, and perhaps as you perhaps made a wrong decision, you found yourself back at square one, well, allow that place and space and time to be a time and a space and a place where God restores you. God gives you that proper perspective and start once again, because God gave Nebuchadnezzar a second chance. Earthly things assumed for King Nebuchadnezzar their true size. His sanity was restored, his honour and splendour was returned to him, and as a result he praised and exalted and glorified God. So wherever you are on the snakes and ladders board of life, if you're going up a ladder, beware of the danger of climbing too high and not giving the honour to God and remaining humble. And if you come down a snake and you're back at square one, accept that for what it is and allow God to teach you through that experience. Let me finish with the wise and memorable words of Lord Denning, the former law lord, who was frequently known to quote these words. To every subject in this land, no matter how powerful, I would use Thomas Fuller's words over 300 years ago. Be you never so high, the law is above you. Words that could well have been quoted to King Nebuchadnezzar, but equally words that we do well to receive with humility. To every subject in this land, no matter how powerful, I would use Thomas Fuller's words over 300 years ago. Be you never so high, the law, God's law, God himself, is above you.